All right, we have a quorum now. Out of our brief recess. So we are in public hearing. Just want to say something real quick, Justin, to you and your team. I wanted to say thank you publicly. I know that this budget season has been a lot for everyone and the department heads and the staff and everything. But I specifically wanted to single your department out and thank you for the hard work and dedication and professionalism and honesty that you and your staff has provided to the community, to the council. And for what it's worth, it means a lot to me. And what I've heard from the community, it means a lot to them. And I know you don't like being highlighted, but I do thank you and your whole staff and Sarah and everyone that you have up there. It means more than you realize, and I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. It's appreciated.
All right, so sir, the floor is yours.
So this is going to be quite simple before the public comes up or anybody has anything to say. The only change from the operating budget was we hired an additional individual and they made their election on insurance, so the insurance amounts have changed. Everything else has remained the same. If you look in your packet, you should see that I was able to establish draft warrant articles, and I want to emphasize that they are draft warrant articles. I have not run them by DRA. I have not run them by legal counsel yet. But I wanted to get something out there to kind of show what it will look like and the size of it all, where we have 5 CBAs and the 5 additional warrant articles that go with it for special cost meetings should the CBA fail, as well as the two sets of 2 warrant articles for positions to determine whether we want 2 traffic officers or 1 full-time librarian or part-time librarian. I included the wording in there essentially stating that should the larger one be voted in, this one will become null and void. So it won't be 3 officers or 1.5 children's librarians. On the tax rate calculation, what we did is we put the higher amount when calculating it out. So if you go through and you add them all up, you'll be off by the 1 traffic patrol officer and the part-time children's librarian.
Okay, and I'm sorry, there was just slight commotion. So just to confirm, this was ran through legal and DRA?
It has not been, no.
Oh,
These
it
are
has
draft
not. Okay.
warrant articles. I wanted to emphasize that aspect.
Understood. Thank you very much for that clarification. Any comments from the BudCom or council before we go to the public? All right, seeing none, this is public hearing. So I just asked name and address. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. Several times during things that have gone on in the past couple of months, it's been mentioned that, well, there's no reason why we can't do this and there's no reason why we can't do that. And I just want to remind you that it's my understanding we have 15 over 55 communities in Londonderry. 15 of them. That is not to mention the other hundreds of seniors we have that don't live in 55 communities. I just want you to bear in mind what living in a senior community means. It means that we are on fixed incomes. We cannot go out and, like my kids used to say to me, work an extra shift, Mom, so that I can get those sneakers that I want. I just want you to bear that in mind. We have a huge senior population, probably one of the largest per capita in the state of New Hampshire. And I want you to keep that in mind because we just cannot afford the taxes. Whether you think we're an affluent community or not, we are not. We rank actually considerably low as far as affluent communities in the state. And I just want you to be aware, seniors, y'all may have jobs. We don't. And most of us are of the era that we know we do not have pensions unless we were in municipalities or fire or police. Most of us do not have pensions. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to share with the public that additional information that I shared with you when we did the tax analysis?
Please do.
So when we did the tax analysis, we figured that about $12 million a year is paid by the 55 and older communities. And we figured that it was about $20 million in total when we extrapolated the demographic of the town. So people paying taxes in this town that are 55 and older is about $20 million of the total taxes that are paid.
Thank you.
And John, that includes the town and school?
Yeah, so
Library, everything?
we collect $110 million, so it's both sides. My point is that, they're a community to be listened to because they're paying $20 million in taxes.
And did you, John, did you state a percentage of the,
Well, there were some other things in that memo that I don't remember off the top of my head because I'm getting old. But there's a percentage of the, that I think I laid out in that memo with regards to the percentage of the demographic of the state.
understood?
And anybody who wants that, it was sent to the council. It's a public memo.
And thank you. Folks, we're in a public hearing. Good evening.
Good evening. I've got a lot. I take a lot. So, for years, I've been coming up here and asking, why do we have all these vacant positions, and why aren't they getting filled? Why don't you, get the budgets where they're supposed to be? And I just get, I guess I got a question, and it's, when we add, we'll look at Article 27, to add an additional police officer, which I guess everybody up there is supporting. How much is that cost just for salary and medical benefits, Justin?
Just give us a moment to prepare that answer.
Oh, yeah.
So, Justin, the chief gave me a number when I asked for that of somewhere around $160,000.
Salary and benefits for a one-person traffic unit is $172,548. So $172,548.
And that's loaded.
Fully loaded, NHRS, health insurance at a family plan, dental at a family plan, uniform allowance, short-term, long-term disability, life insurance.
Okay, so where do we come up with 264,360?
The 264,360, so that's the 172 I just quoted you was salary and benefits.
Yep.
We then have training courses at $750. Uniform and equipment for one officer is $14,210. And part of that warrant article is a vehicle for the traffic unit, and upfitting that vehicle is $76,851.
Okay, anything in there for fuel for that vehicle?
No,
That doesn't include fuel.
no.
Okay. So I'm going to pick on this one because we have, according to the last information I got from Justin, we have 5 open positions in the police department. So for years, this has been
So-
going on.
That's now dropped to 4.
Okay.
We've hired someone new recently.
Okay. Well, you gave me 6, and then there was 1, so there's 2 more? 4, 5?
I'm looking at,
Oh,
sorry, there's one in background right now that
Okay.
I'm counting.
So there's 4 open positions. Okay. So for years we've been dealing with this in the town where department heads have kept open positions and asked for extra personnel. And I don't understand how you operate a business like this. Okay, because in the real business world, if somebody came up to you and said, in my department, I need to hire 2 more people, and you say to them, well, you have 4 vacant positions. Yo, but with 2 more people, I can do some more. All right? Why don't you fill those 4 positions and see if we really need an extra person? All right? They've done this through years in this town with school resource officers where they've had vacant positions. All right? And they say, oh, we need a school resource officer. All right? And like, Councilor Farrell said, do you want to cut personnel? Well, it's not always about cutting personnel. When you have 4, and the numbers you're giving me on the 4 vacant positions, that includes extra money in training, extra money in overtime, extra money in vehicles, and everything that's in that budget, correct? So
Not fully, no. You have to keep in mind that part of the reason those positions are open is because our overtime budgets have been historically underfunded, which has led to issues that have been very public in the past couple months.
okay,
Which is why, compared to where this has been at previously when you've come up, I think a couple of years ago we were talking 7, 8, 9. We're now down to 4 because we've been able to work slowly towards right-sizing the budget to allow those positions to be filled up.
oh, and I have to give credit to our police department and the the police chief for doing that, because before I was up here with a previous police chief who said he has to run 7 vacant positions on his department to balance his budget. All right, that is a problem. Okay, and when I look at the council and the budget committee saying, yeah, I'm in favor of adding more personnel, but nobody's addressing the personnel that you have already budgeted for. Okay, Patrick asked the police chief, if we give you 2 and you already have 4, I think it was 5 at the time, which ones would you fill first?
And his response to it was that he would fill the 2 traffic units first.
Right.
That warrant article, if I can respond,
Yep.
is a direct response to
An ask
the
or request.
a request from the chief, but and that request comes from the fact that there's a lot of traffic complaints in town. That they did an analysis, the police department did, and we're only spending, I believe it's 6.9 hours per week working traffic, and that the community seems to be saying they'd like to see that number go up, and this would make the next 2 hires or the next 1 hire, however it goes on the warrant article, be specifically dedicated to working traffic 40 hours a week.
Okay, so I get where you're going with this.
And
All right,
before the
but-
record, I think we've been working to right-size those lines for the police department so that they can hire up to 69 or whatever the number is, so that they can have a full department. We've been working towards that for several years now. That means fixing the overtime line. That means fixing the training line. Those are been steps along the way. We didn't do that all immediately 3 years ago because that would have been a shock to the taxpayers. We're trying to fix those lines gradually that have been historically underfunded. And so, yes, the police department has not been at full capacity, but that is because they were using some of those open positions to cover for the shortfalls on other lines. I would like to see them not have to do that. But
Exactly.
I agree with you, Dan. I would like to, Mr. Bouchard, I would like to see them up to 69. I also think that the citizens of the town want to see more traffic enforcement, and this warrant article is a response to that apparent desire from citizens of the town.
Okay, so to me, this is your typical government response. In the private world, you'd be going back and you'd say, you got 4 positions. You need extra traffic out there? Hire 2 more out of your 4 and put it there. What is the difference?
So didn't this originally come from? It's a different purpose for those specific ones that you're talking about. So this one is specifically for traffic, and then the other one's for regular.
Okay, so let me address that.
I don't want to wait till hire 70 and 71 to get increased traffic enforcement in the town, and I don't think people in the town want that either.
What is the difference whether you hire from the 4 vacant positions that you have versus two extra that you're going to be putting on.
So
And the other thing is I want to point out, okay, is that it's a bottom line budget. So it doesn't matter if you say, I'm going to hire one person and they're going to be for traffic. The bottom line is it's a bottom line budget. The department head can allocate his staff whichever way he wants. If you watch these budget hearings, if you watch stuff that's gone on in this council meeting, all right, they took somebody from records, which they felt didn't need to be there anymore, and they put him into the legal department. Okay? So things can get shifted around.
So if I can just interject for 1 second. I think what Dan's trying to say to us is, he has two positions now, why doesn't he put them on traffic now? I think that's what he's trying to say.
Exactly. Thank you.
I think there's a little bit more to it than that. I think also, as Patrick said, there's an apparent ask for that. I think if we have those positions on there, and I get what you're saying completely, but I think part of it is to see if the town wants those resources allocated in that way, and that's part of it.
I'd like to give an opportunity for the deputy chief to come up and respond.
I think two things.
Can we make sure you have a microphone just for the public at home, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I think two things can be true. Both what Mr. Bouchard's saying and obviously what Mr. Cassie's saying. We have left those open spots because we haven't been properly funded. Now with the chief coming in, Justin and him have been working to right this wrong. And we knew that it was going to take 4 to 5 years. So we've been slowly doing that. But to just take those open positions that we have and go ahead and make them traffic, we wouldn't be able to do that without the funding that this warrant article will allow.
Okay. You said you had two. Was that your? You said you had two comments. That was just.
No, I said two things can probably
sorry.
be true.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
And some of what he's saying is absolutely accurate. We do have the ability to kind of move people as we will. We just don't have the funding to go ahead and do that right now without the funding that this warrant article will provide.
So, if I hear you correctly, what I believe you're saying is that historically there had been some line items that are underfunded, specifically the overtime.
Correct.
By fully staffing, we would exceed your overall budget, your bottom line budget.
Exactly.
And over the past several years and in continuum for following years, we're in a process of right sizing those budgets.
Right. There's only so much you can do each budget cycle. So that's why it takes 4 to 5 years to kind of right size. And we've been making strides, obviously, because we're staffing up more, as Mr. Bouchard pointed out, more than we have in the past. Because this has been a cycle that has gone on for 10 or 12 years. But now we're at 64 of 68 officers. We could go to 65, but then, we can't fill those last 3, not unless, if it was for this traffic, this warrant article, then it would come with funding for that.
And the numbers proposed in the warrant article drafts would be enough to fully fund one or both or one of those positions.
Well, I believe that last one was 1 in the car.
Yes, the prices or the cost quoted was for one traffic unit officer. So the 264,360 is for a one-person traffic unit. On your warrant article or on the tax rate sheet, you'll see that there's also an option for two-person traffic unit, and that cost is $451,868.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So as you think about this, all right, when you're adding personnel, you're adding extra insurance. You've already got it in the 4, correct, Justin?
What do you mean?
So you got 4 vacant positions right now.
Yep.
Okay.
So we budget for their insurance as well, yes.
So it's already budgeted there. So I think it's cheaper if you right size these line items instead of adding personnel.
We're doing both those things.
Well,
So
you can say that.
my
Patrick,
understanding
but
what you're
it's not.
saying is essentially rather than add the warrant article, then increase the police's budget and the lines that are underfunded, such as vehicle maintenance, some IT items, and all the various places, by the 242,000, and then take the warrant article off and have them hire up those two positions.
Correct. Correct. Because, I mean,
That's what I just want to make sure that that's what you were saying. So, because I don't think everyone understood where you're going with that.
I just look at the whole issue with the fire department when we said last year people voted, they wanted 13. Okay? Well, if you know anything about, how the town's been operating through the years, positions were always filled, always filled. Along comes one department head who goes over his budget and decides years ago, I'm just not going to fill positions. And it bleeds into the fire department doing the same thing. Oh, I'm not going to fill those positions because I need that money to balance my budget. All right? And that's not what the people want. The people wanted 13 firefighters. All right? And that created all kinds of problems because the gentleman that got the chief's position, and just like the police chief, were handed budgets that were messed up, okay, and were not run properly. So I understand the fire department trying to correct theirs, and I can understand the police department trying to correct theirs. But by adding more personnel is not the way to go until you have all your positions filled. Because if you, as a department head, somebody says to you, well, we could use extra traffic cops. Well, when I hire 4 more people, I can put them out there. All right? Instead of saying, well, I need that money to balance the budget. Mm-hmm. Okay? I think as a taxpayer, when you go out there and you say to somebody, they have 4 vacant positions. Why am I voting for 2 more? Good question. Why? It's cheaper if you just, fund the line items properly. I understand it's a bottom line budget. Okay? I watched the council and the budget committee come up with a 17% increase at the beginning of this whole thing. And it was like, oh my goodness, what are you guys doing? All right. Then it was the last time we're going to look at a 4% decrease. And the budget committee came up with some ideas. And it didn't seem like anybody bid on it. All right. It was kind of a process that you just did. All right. And I understand being on a budget committee how it feels to do that and nothing being done. But when somebody says, well, Joe, where would you cut it? It's not his, it's not up to him. Okay? Because the bottom line, it's the department heads that decide, it's the council that decides, and it's the town manager that decides where the cuts come. All right? Sometimes, and I learned that a long time ago with the budget committee. It's easier just to say, hey, we want a 2% decrease. You figure it out. Okay? And it doesn't come out of personnel. So, you look at, I don't know, I was going to put a call into Vivek and, see if he could come down here and, kind of point you guys in the direction. But so that's some of the things. On the news tonight, they were talking about how many homeless people we have in this state. And we know we have some in this community. Do we fund for that? Do we budget for that somewhere?
We outsource our welfare program to Community Health Services of Greater Derry.
And how much is that, Justin, roughly?
It's around 60,000, I believe. Give me 1 second, I can pull it up for you.
We have this as an agenda item later on.
What, homeless people?
No.
Well, that's what I'm bringing up. Because it's reality.
So this year they are budgeted for the contract is 75,000. In addition to that, we have $23,000 to assist with various items that they would recommend that we pay to those individuals to prevent oil from being shut off, rent from being back due, or.
And how is that trending from previous years? I mean, are we underfunding that line item, or
Right now, it's been under budget historically.
it has been? By how much, Justin? Roughly.
So
Funding it for years.
last year, it was under budget by $13,864.
Okay. All right.
Well, the analysis I saw in comparison to other towns, we allocate less than other towns towards it from a payment standpoint.
That could be true. I know other towns have recently increased their allotment in what is allowed for welfare services.
So if our allotments aren't as high as other towns, maybe that's why we're under?
Yes.
Do you have any, I know that you've been working on some stuff pertaining to this Cheerston.
If I just do this here, yes. So we actually have been, this is one of the things that's been in progress for a while, and granted, it probably could have gone a little bit faster. But we actually have a meeting scheduled for right after the new year with CHS, thanks to some urging along that we got. But we have a meeting with CHS right after the first of the year. So we'll be able to take a look at all these things, both with them and in terms of the dollar amount. So this is something that is in progress. We're just not going to bring it to you until we're completely sure of the process and
Compliance.
and that we're in compliance with state law and your own procedures and code.
Thank you.
I know it's not a big ticket item, Article 28, $20,000 for the welcome signs, but this is something I've also stressed. More community involvement. Why can't we get businesses? All right, we already have businesses that sponsor some of these. Why can't we get businesses to pay for it more?
So
Yeah, we are.
it's $10,000 is coming from donations and fundraising from Beautiful Londonderry, so it's only $10,000.
So it's 10,000, not 20.
Correct.
Right.
So why is it?
We're going to fundraise 10,000.
Okay. I think it should be all fundraised, just like we did with the Christmas lights. All right. I brought that up before, and, you know.
You want to help us, Dan?
Yeah. You want me to help you? I'll help you do it. I mean, you know, the people in this community, businesses in this community are great if you ask them. I mean, I know when I worked in this community, if I went to a business and I asked them for something, for a donation, they were more than happy to do it. You know?
If Dan
So-
wants to help, I'll help.
You know?
I think the hard part that was presented to us is that the signs themselves and how they were actually made.
Yep.
The wooden craftsmanship is very unique, so they have to go to a specialty person on them.
I know, and signs are
So it's not like
expensive.
you
I
can
know,
just,
I've dealt with
you know,
signs.
Replace them just as is.
Right.
You have to go to a specialty person to have them.
Right, and my big thing is, you know, if you go to a business, whether, and I don't want to pick on the, you know, New Balance all the time, you know, saying they could do something, but, you know, we've got Coke, we've got New Balance, we've got, you know, a lot of big companies in the community that would probably love to have their name on it. Is what I'm saying.
How many signs are there total?
5.
It's not a lot.
I'm sure we could find 5 big business.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I will take that help.
you know,
I will take anyone that wants to help us donate.
so, it's, you know, again, you know, I just think we have a lot of elderly people in the community. We have a lot of people in the community that are struggling. And, you know, I know it's a tough position that you're in up there, you know, to give people what they want. But sometimes a lot of people are afraid to speak against us, you know, services. But I know it. We had somebody come up earlier. She lives in town. She grew up in town. You know, she felt bad when, you know, she comes up and, you know, comments are made. I could care less what comments you make. You know, I'm just going to speak my mind because I know what I hear from people out there and what people can afford. So, you know, perfect example, when you're looking at adding positions, when you have empty positions, it's hard. It's hard to say yes to that, and I think people probably need to be educated about that, So, any questions? More than happy to answer them. I just look, when Justin gave me the list of open positions, 10 open positions in the community. That's a lot. It's, what, $1 million?
It's likely less than that.
But not a lot.
It's, yeah.
Close to $1 million if you start adding all the bennies and everything. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bouchard.
Thank you.
next. One more thing, sorry. I would, this is for my wife who's at home, okay? That library, I watch these meetings, and there's a lot of attacking on the library. Stop attacking the library. There's other places to cut. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Erin Matlin, Library Director. I'm coming to speak tonight as a response to a request that we got at the last meeting by Mr. Gagnon asking for me to go forward to the trustees and with the request to cut $20,000 and to not go forward with the full-time children's librarian. So on December 4th, I did bring the request to the Board of Trustees. I brought your suggested cuts through the different line items. And I brought Donna and I reviewing those. Some of them matched up for those cuts. I did bring those to the board. And there was quite a lengthy discussion at that board meeting regarding those requests. And tonight we have Nancy Hendricks, who is a trustee member, to speak on the response from the board.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to the Leach Library budget tonight. I also want to thank you and acknowledge the thoughtful input and comments that you have made for us for our budget. This has been a very challenging budget season. They all are, of course. And it's always a challenge when we are charged with balancing the needs and services of the library and community while keeping our taxpayers in mind. The budget that has been presented to you is as lean as a budget as you can get from our point of view. There is no fluff. There's no heart-burning wants or desires, nothing lofty, and nothing that could be considered out of order. Our budget has been prepared to represent the needs and services that our community is demanding from us. At our last meeting, we went through each item that was recommended that we remove from our budget, and I can assure you that the discussion was spirited and lively. There was discussion about adding the position of the children's librarian to the budget, which we agreed was not the right thing to do this year. There was discussion about waiting another year to add a children's librarian, and we agreed that wasn't the right thing to do either. We candidly discussed the cuts that were recommended, and that discussion was particularly spirited. We are mindful that we were asked last year to remove $30,000 from the budget, which we did. Ultimately, after 2 hours of discussion, we have decided to support our original budget that we presented to you and to move forward with 2 warrant articles, one for a full-time children's librarian and one for a part-time children's librarian. Whichever one the voters support is the one that we will adopt. There was significant conversation around the $2,500 line item for furniture. I am told that some of our furniture has been in our library for 30 years and is long past its usefulness and safety. I don't have to tell you that we live in a very, very litigious society, and some of our furniture is now in the danger zone. It will take but just one catastrophic fall out of a chair or one child getting their fingers injured, and you can be promised one heck of a lawsuit. Quite frankly, given the condition of some of our furniture, it is only prudent and responsible that we have furniture replacement in our budget yearly until all of our furniture is out of the danger zone. We are a public library, and public safety must be paramount to our patrons. Salaries are always a major consideration, and our salaries are in line with libraries around us. And further, we must remain competitive if we want to attract highly qualified individuals. Reference has been made to fundraising. Yes, we do fundraising, and we have a volunteer group that assists us with that. Could we fundraise more? Sure. I would say, though, that our librarians are librarians first. The director of the library is the director of the library. There is a whole science behind fundraising, and fundraising is quite time-consuming. At the end of the day, we pay our librarians to be librarians. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that it takes us as a community to support our town and the services that our town offers. All of our services that our community has grown to depend on come with a price tag. Obviously, it is our responsibility as elected officials to prepare budgets that are responsible and take our taxpayers into consideration. We, as the trustees of the Leach Library, believe that we have created such a budget, and I respectfully ask you to support our budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a couple comments? Okay. You have publicly stated that your goal has been to raise your budget. To me, that is not responsible.
I've
at
never
all.
stated that publicly. This is the first time I've been here in a
I'm
public
not
capacity.
talking to you. I'm talking about Aaron here.
I've never stated that publicly.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Could you reference that meeting for us, please?
I don't have that in my notes, but I know it's been in the notes.
If you could reference that, that would be very interesting to me, because I
that
find
for
it
you?
hard to believe that our director would come up here and say it's our goal to raise our budget. But if you can reference that meeting for me, I would be happy to look at it.
Sounds great.
What I would request is that we refrain from back and forth.
Okay.
If
Thank you.
could please continue. And
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
It's also been publicly stated, and there's people in the audience that can speak to this as well, that you have purposely padded the furniture line so you can make cuts to it if asked. And to me, that's not responsible. Just calling this out, and your salaries are absolutely out of line with the rest of the state.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to that? I was actually there putting the budget together, and I can assure you $2,500 in a furniture line item is not padded.
I think it was more.
It is not padded. It's always been $2,500, and it's not padded.
Okay.
So, but thank you for that input. I will certainly go back and look. You can listen to those minutes, and if it's been padded, I would certainly get back to you. And we've done our research in terms of libraries in the area, and we are absolutely competitive.
Thank you. Any other questions for the library?
Just a comment. I want to thank you for coming back and going through it and having that discussion. We were asked to take a look and see if we could find cuts.
Of course, everybody's being asked
Exactly, and every single department we took a look at. Where could we find some money here, some money there. So thank you for coming back. Thank you for discussing it. At the end of the day, the council can decide whether
course.
they want to take a chunk out of the library's budget or add to it, subtract from it. And I guess that's all I've got, so thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, so we're in a public hearing, folks. Any other?
Not a question, comment.
What's that?
Just a comment on the furniture thing. Okay. Again, getting back to community involvement. I know at the school, the middle school, we had a wood shop there. Would it be nice to be able to get the school? I don't know if they still do. Art, you should know. Wouldn't it be nice if you could get the school, the kids, and I don't know what kind of furniture they're looking for, but I'm sure there's some stuff that they could make at the school, which would be really cool, that when your kids go, this was made by brother or sister, a table, the small chairs. That's the stuff I'm looking at, Is that something to explore? Another community involvement thing. What do you think, Ted?
We almost should have a community involvement committee, just for all these little things to look at, and
I think you should
for
chair
people
it, Sean.
Yeah, for people who want to volunteer for
Yeah.
things in town. I think there's a lot of things that we've talked about over the last year.
Dan, the chairman.
I know. Ted's waiting to say something here.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
What's your thought, Ted?
My thought was, when it comes to the library and furniture that the public's going to be sitting on, I think it would have to be bought from an actual vendor where it could be trusted that it was made properly, compared to at the high school where, it's not going to be going through a quality control process. So when you have the public at hand, you don't want them to potentially get hurt or that furniture to be breaking. So
I get that.
Yes, we have a wood shop. You don't want to make something that's not going on under a quality control process.
I don't know.
So you
When I
want
went to
something that's going to be safe.
When I went to school, we made stuff in wood shop. It was pretty cool. So
Okay, but
I'm sorry, can I speak to that real quick? I'm happy to explore the wood shop option for other things in the library that don't necessarily reflect to furniture. The last library I worked at, we had them build slat wall for us that we used for displays, things like that. And we actually went to the high school and we paid them $1,000 opposed to the quote that I got, which was absolutely ridiculous. We paid them $1,000 and they did it. It was part of a semester project and it worked out fantastically. So I'm happy to explore options of other areas where we can have them build things to save money for the library. I do agree that I think furniture is a tough one because of the safety and the ADA compliancy and all of that goes along with it. But I'm happy to explore other options that we can use those wood shop skills and, of course, the community to do stuff in the library.
Thank you.
thank you. That's why my wife loves you.
So, Justin, quick question for you. Just verifying I'm doing my numbers right here. On a $500,000 house, I'm looking at $125 to fund the library. On a $600,000, $150. On a $700,000, $175. Is that ballpark about right?
You're going to have to give me a minute here.
While you look that up, is it all right if you get back to us and we have other community?
Of course.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community during this public hearing? And Justin, if you can please just remind us to come back.
Glenn Douglas, 6 Overlook Ave. Trying to follow his bouncing ball is pretty hard when you're sitting out there and you don't have charts and graphs. At one point, it was stated a 17.5% to 25% increase if everything passes. All I want to know, because it doesn't sound like we're making any changes to anything, if everything passes, what are we talking about? 17, 25, 14, 12? I don't know. The second thing, just because it was stated publicly, if we are aware of furniture that is in the danger zone and we have a litigious society, I guarantee you, if someone falls off a chair tomorrow, they're going to come back with their attorneys and say, you all knew you had furniture that's in a danger zone. That stuff needs to be removed immediately. Because if someone does get hurt, they're going to get twice what they were going to get. Because before tonight, you could have said, didn't really realize it was that broken, but now we know, and we're stating publicly, this stuff is junk and needs to go. So it needs to go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Justin, are you able to come back to John's?
So for a 500,000, it is 119.50. For a 600,000, I have about 156.
So on average, it's of the person's tax bill that they received today, about $150 to fund the library annually. Okay, thank you.
Can we answer that other question? Glenn just asked what percentage we're at in increase if all of the things on the warrant articles passed, and you have a $4.54 per 100,000 per thousand valuation. What was it last tax year?
So Patrick, we can't answer that until we get the CBA numbers finalized.
Okay, well, okay, fair enough. What was it last year anyway?
I'm not trying to be a jerk, just letting you know we don't have that answer yet for the CBAs.
Fair enough, but I just want to say that I don't think we're anywhere near those numbers. That whole conversation with 20%, 25%, 17%, that felt like that was another exercise. I don't believe our numbers are anywhere near that. That's why I'm asking.
Can we we?
Trying to get it right now.
Thank you.
There are packets in the back for everyone if you'd like to see what the cost is.
So I can answer that somewhat.
Will be posted online as well that you'll
It's
be able
currently
to.
posted online.
Christine, go and then. Or do you
Yeah,
want
that's
to
fine.
first?
I was just going to answer his question.
Okay, so if it's all right with you, I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to let Sean.
I think where the numbers came from, and I don't know that they're 25% or 17%. When we first started this out, we did some exercise where we begged everybody to spend more money, and more or less it came to $1.93 on the tax rate. That was if you can figure out what percentage that is of that, you'll have your answer. But at least there's a number to derive the equation from that.
Not all of us were in support of that.
No,
exercise
I'm
to
not saying
begin
that. Definitely not saying that at all. I'm just saying that's where that ended up. I remember I wrote that down, and that's
The community asked us to answer a question of what would happen if we went to 16, 18 firefighters, if we increased all the numbers for all of the first responders. And we went through that exercise and answered their question.
And that's where that 17 and 20, that.
I don't
range-
know if that's the number it came from. I know that was the rate at that, and I imagine that's where people derived that number. I don't know if their math is right, but I know it was $1.93 from there.
So, Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. So I have 3 things. One, I forgot that a neighbor told me to ask. They couldn't be here, but I'm going to go hit that one last. There's the next group of people that I want to bring up to you are the young working class people in this town that get up, go to work, put gas in their car, stop at the grocery store, come home, try to feed their kids, clothe their kids that are growing, and they get no help from anybody. Nobody. So that's another big group of people that are struggling in this town because they're not getting 8% raises. My other question is, I was asked by a neighbor, do you do zero-based budgeting? So you have all the people that are presently working, not open seats, presently working. You have 10 people working. They each make $10. So you have a zero base of 100. So that's your line you start for salaries. Is that what you do? Or do you just take those people and then add in all the people that aren't working here yet, that are open, and tack that on? So that's my question to you, if you wouldn't mind answering it, because the real world is doing zero-based budgeting right now. The real world of businesses, because things are tight, they take their staff. From what I'm understanding that you're doing is you're taking those 10 people at $10, and there's your 100. Now you're adding on the other whatever number of people that you don't have, that you have open for you, and adding that on, and that's what you're calling your salary line item. So it's kind of a fictitious salary line item. Is that the way it's being done?
So the way the budget is done for salaries is we take everyone in their current position, not necessarily the person, the position, what they're making in the current fiscal year, and then we add what their CBA says that we have to do for the next fiscal year.
I don't know what a CBA is.
A collective bargaining agreement.
So the contract.
So whatever the contract states. So if that's
Okay,
a
that
step
makes sense.
increase,
Okay, that makes sense.
For open positions that are advertised, yes, those are included because potentially we could hire that person tomorrow.
Okay, but you've had open positions for years. You've had some open.
Some of them are still being advertised. So
I
PD
understand.
is
Some
still
of them are
advertised.
not being advertised too. And that's a problem.
But those positions were voted on by the town, to my knowledge. So we can't just not fund the 4 open police positions because now we're deciding for the taxpayers that we're going to reduce the police department by 4 people. That's not our role.
No, but you need to make the public known that those are over here. And I ask, is the warrant article for the police officers, does it say it includes a car? When you write up the warrant article for a
If
police...
it doesn't, it should. Like I said, those are rough draft warrant articles. If it doesn't, it should. However,
Okay,
we
because if
also
I
do
looked
discuss
at one police officer and it's $225,000, I'm signing up.
Can I, please, thank you. So there's a car, Chief.
I'm just asking to say, please include that it includes a car so that you're
Perfect.
being totally transparent to the budget. Okay, now my
Thank you.
final question, I promise, for the night is, it's my understanding, please correct me if I am wrong, that the library has taken on a new, I think this is maybe the second year, where they are part of, and I don't know, I'm going to say a consortium that's probably not worth, huh?
G Milks.
Whatever. Okay. To the tune of roughly between $40,000 and $50,000 a year, and it goes up the more books you have. Is that my understanding? $40,000, $50,000 a year.
Aaron, do you want to come up and discuss?
Finance director, that. With
Well, you should
respect,
know what
it's-
they are.
Jocelyn absolutely knows. That's why we have department heads, not to be disrespectful.
Okay.
That's why
So
we
that's
have-
my question. So if
Sure.
is
You want me
that
to answer
true?
it?
Yeah. How?
So yes, so our consortium cost for fiscal year 26, I believe, is in the 52,000 range. That's the cost of the membership to the consortium. That's based on a formula, based on a number of things: the collection size, how many patrons we have, a number of other things. All libraries part of that consortium have the same formula, and so based on those numbers, that's how the amount works.
Okay.
out.
How much did you pay last year?
Last year we were only in it for not even, I don't even think it was half a year. So it was about 30, is that right, 30,000? Yeah, about 30,000 because we weren't in it a full year.
Okay. And then my question to that is, you can get books from all over the place, right?
You can get books from, well, you can get, so we have two different,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
You have two different interlibrary loan systems?
No, I just want to know about this one.
Okay, so this one we can get books from 13 other libraries.
Okay. And is it my understanding that you also have a line item for $100,000 for new books?
We've had a line item for books in the budget for, as far as I know, for a long time, and that line item currently, what we're asking for, is $100,000.
But you had that line item for a long time, but now you've joined something that makes it easier for people to access book. I just think if you want to make a cut, that to me should be the $50,000 you put into joining this other thing that gives you books. So it's just a thought.
Thank you.
She's also been over that line item at least $40K for the past 4 years. or
So
something.
just a correction, she hasn't been over that line item. The library has been over that
For
line
sure,
item.
definitely.
So,
So sorry.
and I manage the budget that was presented to me.
Yes.
So if that line item has $90,000 in it, it's my job to spend that $90,000. There is additional,
On books?
excuse me.
On books?
Can we please?
No, I just have a question. Is that
Christine.
spent on books?
That's the line. If the line item is for books, it's either $90,000 going forward. It's $100,000 is what we're asking for.
I'm going to hit timeout real quick.
Okay, I'm going
I'm going to hit timeout. I don't want the back and forth.
Okay.
I am asking for, and this is not directed at anyone, this snide comments about, the finance director should know. We have department head.
I didn't think she had to bring her up. I thought he would know.
I understand. I'd like to have this more collaborative from everybody. There are great points, and there's great feedback from the community. I want to continue this healthy dialogue. Please, thank you.
I will. Just had a question for Aaron. Okay, when we joined that consortium,
Yes, sir.
did it not help you as far as staffing?
We don't get any staff from the consortium.
No, but I know at one time you were asking for extra staff at the time, and then we joined the consortium.
Mm-hmm.
Did that help free up some of the staff to do other things?
Not necessarily, because with the consortium, there's an interlibrary loan process. There's a management process of that interlibrary loan. There's other things going on. So we had to shift some duties. We still need the staffing as requested in that last warrant article that was voted down. But this going forward, this warrant article is for a children's librarian, which is represented due to the last year's statistics of our programming in our children's room specifically, and the use of the library specifically.
So would you say the consortium has been beneficial to the community?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, that's what I needed. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? Good evening.
Amy Wheeler, 11 Darrow Way. To Erin's point, so to hear somebody say, if I am given $90,000, I'm going to spend it, when we're talking about responsible spending, that is not okay for me. I think we really need to take a look at particularly the library spending, because I've heard a couple comments about the library spending. I've heard one person state, and she may have been speaking as a resident, that we need to sacrifice for the library. I'm not okay sacrificing. This is a really tough time. And from what I understand, the library budget has gone up about 29% since 2022. That's not responsible to me at all. So please, I ask you to take into consideration the type of world we're living in right now and really taking a responsible budget stance, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something, Mr. Chair? I believe Director Matlin's comment that was implied was she was stating that she wasn't going to spend 150 if she was authorized 90. I don't think she was saying she was going to spend every penny of that 90. I think that there's more than one way to interpret that statement, and the way I believe she meant it was that she wasn't going to overspend.
Any other comment from the public during this public hearing?
There's been a lot of back and forth, and that's just frustrating as somebody who's sitting in the audience. What Erin said was she spends $90,000 on books because that's the line item, because Christine asked, what do you spend it on? Christine Perez. It was an answer to that. Don't misunderstand what's being happened. I understand. I'm sorry. It's just frustrating to sit here and have people nitpick. The public is entitled to know what the budget is being spent on. You can ask. It's right. It's in the presentation that Justin put together. Historically, the budget has been over on books because we're a library and we spend money on books. I'm not saying make any type of concessions to other departments. I said that every department needs to be funded as asked. And it is not 22% from 2022. It is closer to 14, which is right in line with CPI, Consumer Price Index, with the cost of living going up and the cost of consumer goods like books. You need to do actual math and have actual evidence. And that's what I'm saying is every department is presenting good fiscally sound budgets, and it's very frustrating when members of the community and members of the board attack or disparage. And I appreciate, Chad, you trying to get this as a more communal information, because it is a community. And it's just very frustrating as a taxpayer, as an employee, to see all of this going on. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you for your comments, and I value public comment. I've been thinking about it since you said it before. If I was the one that said speech, it was inadvertent, and I didn't.
You were not.
Okay. I did consciously. I'm like, I just want you to know I value all that.
It was not so much that it was called a speech. It was called a speech in a derisive tone.
Yeah. No, I understand.
And that is not what I'm doing. I am passionate when I speak because I love Londonderry. I think Londonderry is amazing. I choose to work here because that is what my vocation calls for. I really, truly believe that working for the library is a vocation for me. And working in the hometown, the town I grew up in, the library I grew up in is important to me. I don't have to work here. I want to work here. I could go somewhere else if I needed to, but I don't want to because this is my town. I have hometown pride, and you all should too.
Thank you.
So I came over to Justin to get the numbers. So
He's over there now.
So since 2022, going into this coming budget, the proposed budget, we are up 259,158, and it's a 19.8% increase. Just so we have real numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still in a public hearing, folks. Good evening.
Thank you, Justin.
Good evening. Patrick Alazm, 22 Summer Drive. Mostly just a quick observation. I've lived here for 24 years, and to some of the comments about funding, my observation, just my personal, has been that over the whole time I've been here, generally Londonderry has really stepped up and funded things that we've all believed are very important. Our first responders, police, fire, and so on. And I know there's here and there are these debates. I've heard a comment made here a couple of times tonight that when departments request funding, that should be provided. I disagree entirely. When departments request funding, it is all of our responsibility, and yours first and foremost, to consider what can be done, what should be done, and what is appropriate, and when you should ask us, the taxpayers, to step up. But with all due respect, every request should be evaluated on its merits, not simply agreed to. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
So I'm talking to Ron and continuing to do some numbers, just trying to figure out if there's anywhere to go. So we talked about at 38.1 million, we were at 86% of our budget. So then I'm going through this and I add in debt service. Can't get rid of debt service. That's another 1.3 million. That takes us to 89.5% of our budget. And then if I add in the library, that takes us to 41 million out of the 44 million. I'm not including sewer. That gets us to 93.1.
93.1%.
Of, if we add,
Of
so,
your,
of everything. So if we take first responders, insurance, solid waste, we have to take care of trash. We have to fund being able to collect the revenue to pay for all this. We have to add in debt service. And we add in the library, that gets us to 41 million out of the 44 million. So we got 3 million that I haven't identified yet. I mean, I'm more than willing to, if someone's got an idea of what service we could minimize, I'm all in.
Can we circle back to the percentage aspect?
Please.
So I want to do this in two parts. One, what the tax rate currently was versus what the estimated tax rate will be. You're looking at a 79-cent increase, which is 20.90%.
Can you say that again for people?
So the current tax rate is expected to be $4.56 based on my calculations here. That is an increase of 79 cents from the $3.77 that was the tax rate for calendar year 24. That is a 20.90% increase. The reason I want to do this in two parts is, as you guys have known, when it comes to these numbers, I like to estimate the tax rate to be slightly higher. That way, the voters, when they go in to vote, are voting for a higher tax rate instead of a lower one, and I'm not, come tax time, doing the reverse. So if you vote, and it says 10 cents, for as long as I've been here, with 1 year being the exception, every year that 10 cents has actually been slightly lower. So I like to estimate in that fashion. That way the taxpayers aren't saying yes to something lower and then kind of a bait and switch, in my opinion, type situation. If we look at what I did last year for what was approved, you're looking at $4.15 that the taxpayers approved. That is an increase of 41 cents or 9.83%. If that is what people were looking for.
And for the CBAs, we're looking, I'm trying to.
That does not include CBAs right now.
So, and we don't have clean numbers for that yet.
Correct.
But we will have clean numbers before the end of the calendar year.
That is the hope.
Can't be the hope. We have to have a clean number before the end of the calendar year.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll renew my question. I mean, if any services we want to minimize, I mean, I'm all ears. I want to talk about it.
We spent the meeting 2 weeks ago talking about options for reductions, and it went round and round.
So can I jump in real quick because there's confusion. So based on the tax rate itself, it is 20.90% increase. Based on essentially comparing apples to apples for what this shows versus what it showed last year, it is 9.83%.
Okay.
That's not including union contracts.
So the 9.83% is when you went to the ballot last March, we estimated that the tax rate was going to be $4.15 last March of 2024. When we got the tax rate, it was actually less. It was $3.77.
Was our
So
evaluation- our
what Justin is saying is that we overestimate at this time so that you know worst case scenario when you're voting for something what the tax impact is. So last year, if you voted yes for everything, it was $4.15. This year, we're estimating $4.56. So that's the 9.83% increase.
And that's if everybody votes yes on everything.
Yes. And if you were to go and actually add them up, it'll be $4.15 is veterans credit and overlay.
So for every $62,500 we eliminate for the budget, we eliminate a penny.
Yes.
So if you want to eliminate things, you got to get to 62,500 to get a penny.
Do we have any more comment from the public?
If not, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, before we do, I'm realizing there was another item that you guys tasked me with that we did look into. It was regarding the contingency fund, in which you looked to see if there was alternatives where it wouldn't be voted on every year.
Yes.
And would be able to. It appears that we'd be able to establish almost similar to a maintenance fund, essentially a continuous item, like our expendable maintenance, but for various aspects. So that is something that we could look into where the money you put into it will not lapse and you won't have to vote on it every year if you're comfortable with the balance that's currently in there. The departments would still have to come to you, or myself or the town manager would have to come to you guys and request to use it. But it's not a every year vote.
That's wonderful. That's great.
So you can decide which one you want to go with, whether it's this one where, again, it's not, this 396 doesn't add on to next year if we were to go and do it. This 396 is done at year end and the voters have to vote whether or not they want to fund it again. And this one, I would always recommend utilizing UFB. That way it's not double taxing the voters.
Correct. No, I think, can you repeat that as Chad was out of the room, that he found this other?
So essentially, instead of the contingency fund, we are able to use essentially a maintenance fund, or what's the right terminology for it?
It would be an expendable trust fund with the purpose of, let's say you wanted it for overtime for public safety. It could be used for that. So we have to be clear enough or distinct enough that it can't be used on anything, but it can't be vague that we can use it on anything, if that makes any sense. We have to set a purpose for it.
It's got to be parameters.
Exactly.
With it being a trust fund, can it be invested like our other trust funds, or no?
I would have to take a look to verify that aspect, but it definitely could be with the other capital reserves and things like that. Where trust funds get a little more dicey is historically the ones that you're mentioning, you can only expend the income, you can't expend the principal balance. With this, you'd be expending the principal, so you would need it to be liquid to a certain extent.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, being a public hearing, can you explain this fund more as far as how is this being funded? How is it going forward? I mean, is it, for example, let's say we fund it with $100,000. Next year,
Which
do
one
we
are
have to start all over again, or does it stay there if we don't use it and we can build on it?
Which one? So which one do you want? Because the contingency fund that I initially have on there,
Right.
come next year, you have to vote on it again. That 100,000, if it's not touched, remains with UFA. Essentially, the contingency fund allows for an additional appropriation should something occur that we don't have budgeted and planned for.
Okay, and how would we fund that contingency fund? Let's say it's $100,000. Where's that money coming? I know it's coming from the taxpayer, but where?
I would recommend using fund balance in this for this.
Which is still coming from the taxpayer.
Yes.
It's still coming from the taxpayer, but it's not a warrant
You're
article
not- you're-
saying we're asking for.
25's your tax year, your 25 tax bill
Mhm.
will not be impacted by this being approved.
Right, just like, we don't, I guess when we're doing a capital fund for fire truck, every year we're voting for X amount to go in there. This is not.
Stays in there, though.
Right.
This would not stay in there.
Okay, and
The
what-
other option we had of the expendable trust fund,
Yep.
it would stay in there similar to the fire truck or a capital reserve.
Similar to it, so it'd be revolving.
That way we wouldn't have to
Not
vote on it
revolving, but
every
it
year.
would be.
Which would
it
be a
carry
better
forward.
thing
I
to
can only
do.
hear one person at a time.
It's not revolving, but it does carry forward.
Understood. Thank you for that.
So you don't have to fund it every single time.
Correct.
Okay.
But the other aspect is with this one, where you have to fund it, the voters have to approve it each year, it goes back.
Correct.
So rather than it staying there and once it's approved, it can't be used for anything other than that purpose, it goes back to the voters to then redetermine if they want to do it again.
So at the end of the year, the town has an excess of 500,000.
So the town,
Let's say.
let's say the town doesn't touch this,
Yep.
it's as though it stayed in UFB the entire time.
Okay, but what I'm getting at, Justin, is let's say at the end of the year, the town has an excess of $500,000. All right, and the council just says we're going to put 50,000 into this fund. Is
The
that how?
voters need to approve it.
But if it's a revolving fund, we'd
It's not a
have-
revolving fund.
No.
It would be similar to the capital reserve funds, like the fire truck. Every year, if you want to add to this expendable trust fund, every year would have to have a warrant article to add to it. The only difference is that it would not go away at the end.
Gotcha. Now I got it.
So it could be so the balance would be carried over, and to replenish it would have to be done by vote.
Correct.
Thank you.
For the expendable, yes.
It's
like Article 3.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's exactly like an expendable maintenance trust fund, except it has a different purpose.
Understood.
Whatever that parameter we set.
So similar to like years ago, I think it was the expendable maintenance trust fund that people voted down. And people were all in an uproar going, oh my God, how are we going to plow this? How are we going to plow that? And, we got it done, but it wouldn't be funded unless taxpayers said yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Gotcha. Now I understand it.
But we're funding it this time with UFB.
Right.
This time, starting.
To start
this
it.
time.
To start it.
Okay.
Deb Paul, 118 Hardy Road. The subject matter that you guys were just talking about, what exactly would this fund be used for again? Because I got very confused.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, from my understanding, or would you prefer to answer?
So, if you don't mind, if I can.
I would love you to.
The problem is there's several balls in the air here. The contingency fund that's there, this essentially is a big event happened, our appropriations have run out, and rather than telling the fire department that.
Okay, just stop right there. So isn't that what the undesignated fund balance is kind of for? If a major catastrophe, like the roof collapses, God forbid, on this building, and we have to put a roof up like tomorrow.
So the issue there is we would have to go to the state and request an emergency appropriation and hope that they grant it to us. This essentially allows us to utilize it right away rather than going to the state for an emergency appropriation.
Okay. So, but it kind of behaves like
it does. The difference
designated
is
fund
with
balance.
a school, it does, but the difference is like a school district, they're able to hold a public hearing to be able to utilize their UFB for a situation like that. We have to go to the state to get an emergency appropriation approval to use UFB like that.
For statute.
We can only use UFB by voter approval or by lowering the tax rate.
So how come the school can do it and we can't?
Different
and why can't we
RSAs.
do it that way?
Different RSAs.
I'm sorry?
Different state laws. The school is governed by different state laws than us.
Two different forms of government.
No, I understand, but I just kind of wondered what we could do as a form of government. Going back, I guess, to Tony's point, maybe we need to re-examine how we're doing things. I'm just looking at, we've got all these little accounts that we're saving money in to do different things, which takes out of our regular day-to-day, year-to-year operation, and in a time when we need some extra cash here and there. I'm just trying to think it out in my head. I'm sorry.
So with this,
You need new legislation. I mean, you need another form of government.
That's what I was just thinking. If we, Derry has board of selectmen. If we move to a board of selectmen form of government, would that, no? Okay.
It needs to be very thoughtfully thought out by the legislature, and they need to give the towns another option as things have changed. We're not the same place as we were 30 years ago.
Okay.
And they need to give them another option. SB2 was designed to be a tax cap. It's not getting the job done. They need to come up with another piece of legislation that gives the towns options and doesn't limit the towns for what they can do to have a better form of government. I mean, it's just that simple.
No, I understand. I
No,
understand.
I know you understand.
I'm going to go back to something I did on the council, which you told me was way too big to do. But I really think that a good exercise for every single department to do, maybe not every year, but every couple of years, is to zero out their budget and really look at every single item in the line item and say, do we need this? Is this fully funded? This one short? And so that you're actually getting a true snapshot of what it costs to run that specific
That's what they've done this
department.
year.
But but to make sure we don't fall through the cracks again, Ted, like
Well,
that
that's what
things
they've
aren't
done
getting
with
met.
Justin. That's
But if
right.
they do it zero out every single year, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I understand what you're saying, but as an exercise for them to come in here and say, okay, these are take out what we have to pay for bills and employees. Those goes over there. And down in this column, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 items, and we're going to go through it, zero out exactly what it is needed. Not every year. That would be crazy, but like every maybe 3 to 5, you sit there and it's a good exercise for the department heads to really reevaluate things, reevaluate even personnel and how the jobs are run. Just saying.
So that is a great idea, and we actually started that practice this year with the fire department. When we established their budget, we had them go through each of their lines and essentially what's in it and how we go. And we
large
sat with them
corporations
to-
do it all the time, and it's to
And
get
what I'm
people
saying
not
is
to be
it's-
comfortable to just keep going. We did it this way.
It's
we
a
did
great
it this
idea.
Way.
We've started the process, and we're going to continue
Great
it
minds.
going forward.
All right, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to have the intern, because they're the ones that was able to create the spreadsheet for me to be able to do that going forward.
So I got a question. We have these heavy rains, and some of these communities have been, really devastated by, damage to their roads and all that. We have a heavy rain. Some of our roads get damaged really bad. Can that contingency fund be used for that? Where would you get the money for something like that?
For if the roads were damaged?
Yeah, let's say that,
If there was a washout of a road.
big washouts. Bartley Hill gets washed out. Perkins Road gets washed out. South Road gets washed
So first
out
I would
in these
see
heavy rains.
if FEMA covers it under a natural disaster.
But you need the money now, Justin, for people to fix it.
So we have either the roadway maintenance trust fund, or we would be able to utilize this, so that way the budget isn't completely, depending on the cost of it, the budget wouldn't be completely shot.
So this would help.
Yes.
Or we can go to the state and ask for approval.
Correct.
From the undesignated fund.
From the yeah, but that would take time compared to if people can't get to their homes and you need to get the road fixed.
I think
you
if
know.
we had an emergency that bad, I don't think the state would be delaying us for weeks. I think we could get a response a lot faster than that.
It's the
And if it
government.
was that bad, it would probably be a FEMA situation.
Yeah.
But again, yes, that is, if, end of the day, that is something that this could be utilized for.
Could make life easier.
Where essentially it would grant us that additional appropriation.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm looking at it, is it's, hey, we've used our budget. Rather than going or saying, hey, we need to, do this, that, or the other, it gives us that additional appropriation to go to the council and say, this event has happened, this specific thing has happened.
Yep.
Can we have authorization to utilize this fund? They then determine yes or no, and we move.
So that a department's not told, hey, you have to freeze.
Yeah.
You can't spend this, spend that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public before we close public hearing? Going once.
Motion to close the public hearing. Second.
I have a motion from Ted, second from Ron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are out of public hearing. BudCom, you're all set.
We'll see you on.
Stand by. But,
Tomorrow night, school board.
Hold on real quick. Go ahead, Sean.
So I just wanted to get everyone's feedback before I stated this. So Mr. Bouchard brought up, we had talked about cuts for a while, and we have not bid on one of them. We discussed a lot of them. So if I could, I would like to make 2 suggestions. So the first, and
Does this have to be part of the public hearing?
does it have to be part of the public hearing? Because then I think
It does not.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Make sure we're following process.
Yeah, thank you. So with the first thing, every time we propose cuts, it doesn't mean we hate the department. You know, I love police, but if Kim Bernard said he wanted a $1 billion budget, I'd probably ask for a cut. That doesn't mean we hate these departments and I don't like it. I realize every single one of them are valuable. I realize when everybody comes up here and talks about, things about like, tonight we heard how wonderful the library is. I think the library is wonderful. I think it does a lot of good things for this community. There's no doubt it should be there, and it exists for a reason. DPW, police, fire. But with that, we've got us as town councilors have to manage the store. We have to try to keep everything in line. And I prefer not to get emotional about these things. I prefer to just do facts and do research. So in the first thing, I did a little research, and I did look into the library because I wanted to see, with all the facts that were presented before, to see statistically, are we in line with other libraries? I took the 14 libraries in the state that had the budget at the level of our library or more. And part of the issue is I want to make sure that we're getting the right allocation of the money for this. So statistically, looking at our library, as far as adult programming, we were the lowest ranked of those libraries. We were 62% away from the next closest program. So there was significant underutilization of that. Out of those 14, we were 12th in total programming. We were 13th in total children's program attendance out of 14. We were last in adult attendance, with the next closest program being 58% away. We were 13th out of 14th in program attendance. We were the only library in those where everyone employed all had master's degrees. We had the lowest website visits. We had the lowest wireless sessions. We had the highest percentage of staff expenditure in salary and wages as far as percentage of total expenditures. We had the lowest, or the second lowest, physical item circulation per physical library materials expenditure. That just means the price that it costs to have these things. We were the lowest in rank in most cost-efficient electronic item circulation per material expenditure. Second lowest in total collection per total collection expenditure as far as being cost-effective. Fourth lowest in total operating expenditure per library visit. We had the lowest number of print item materials, second lowest ebook circulation, second lowest audiobook circulation, second lowest in young adult attendance, lowest total program attendance, third lowest in program attendance per registered user. We had significantly highest total program expense, which was double more than any of the other libraries. And we also had the fourth lowest registered user to population expense as far as being one of the higher ranked ones for spending. So with that, I think the problem is not, and none of this is towards Erin because she actually doesn't generate the budget. She just manages the budget. And you've got attacked in a lot of this, and I want to make this is not about you. You don't create this. A lot of this is weighted towards staff salaries versus what we offer as programs. I love the library, and I want all these services to equal out and balance out how we're doing our budget. But when you look at comparable libraries that offer these level of services, the next comparable one has a budget of $100,000 less. We get 8% of raises yearly, most likely, at the library. With these, we also, and I agree, librarians shouldn't be fundraisers, but the Keene Library, which has a significant spend, Their Friends of the Keene Library raised $55,000 for them as far as fundraising. So it wouldn't be the job of the librarians, but it's something that the Friends of the Leach Library could look into. With that, and since we haven't cut a thing, I would just ask the rest of the council what they think about getting this more in line for what we provide for services, because I feel like we're unbalanced. I feel like if we ask for another librarian and we keep requiring master's degrees, unlike other programs, our salary expenses are going to keep going up because we hire higher and we add percentages every single year higher on top of that, so they quickly grow out of budget and where we had. So I didn't know if there's an appetite for anyone here, but that would be my proposal, to get that to the level of services we had and get it in line with everything else, because some of our other departments are not in line, or as we heard from Mr. Bouchard, like our police, we can't afford to hire 4 police officers with our current budget, even though we want them. But with this, I think we have some price of staffing issues, and I think we've made 2 requests to the trustee board before, and came back unanswered. And so I'm left with this to ask of the council to see if we would entertain that.
So here's where I'm struggling. I've been running all these numbers all night long, right? And this is why I'm struggling with all this. So for insurance, we're up $485,000. Police, we're up $1.2 million. And fire, we're up $1 million. So for police and fire and insurance, we're up $2,685,000. I'm just struggling with the whole thing. I mean, it's so. If you're looking to cut in the library, I need $62,500 to get a penny. But I'm going up 2.685 between police and fire, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah,
I'm just reading what's in front of me.
No, it all adds up, and I just think, and I have a second suggestion after this. It's not just them, and we shouldn't be just picking on them. And in any other department, I would go through this same analysis. It's just we haven't cut a thing in this, and I'm just looking for us to show something to the community that we're willing to do something.
And take the bottom line and take a number off the bottom line and distribute it. I mean,
yeah.
I mean that. So back before we had SB2, we had town meeting, and people would come in and say, and they just cut $100,000, and you guys go figure it out, because it's a bottom line budget. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just having a discussion.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point a couple of things about your statistics. You based your stats based off of money, so how much money that library in particular is spending, not population size. And when you compare population size by services, the library is still 3.5 people short, based off of the size of the town in which it is in. And so Keene, also I know you mentioned Keene and how many programs and stuff they have. They actually have a head of engagement. We do not. And so that head of engagement is probably, I'm presuming, I don't know, I don't have, the job responsibilities, but it sounds like that's somebody who's responsible for programming, fundraising, and all that other kinds of stuff specifically. And with that, of course they can, fundraise $55,000 a year. They have somebody who's solely responsible for that. We don't. And so I think, comparing apples to apples, I think it's a little unfair.
So, real quick, please. We had a public hearing regarding the budget. We are having town council discussion. Would it be appropriate to release the BudCom at this time?
Yes.
With that, I'll ask I'll thank the budget committee for their comments and time. And also for the community. Have a moment recess. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, not yet.
Just in case you have a question.
Because
we just might have a question for them.
No, they have to present items
Right.
tonight.
Cheerson.
Kirsten, they have other items they have to
Okay.
present tonight.
I'm running.
Sorry. We need you.
We were saying the same.
They were. Could always move them on.
So would we.
Those stats, I'm gonna run those numbers now.
Right. Yeah. So, Sean, do you want to have further discussion? Do you want to? And again, thank you to the budget committee.
I'll elaborate on that. I think that, to John's point, maybe we should ask for, a 1% or 2%. We got to do something. The community's asking us.
Yeah.
They're saying to us, we can't afford to live here. Should we propose a 1%? Just something to show that we hear them.
So the question is who's asking us? I feel like we haven't actually heard from a large percentage of people saying this. And when, you're looking at 1%, 3%, 4%, as we've gone through, that's a large amount of money. Even a 1% on our budget would be a massive amount of money. And we wouldn't be able to do that without affecting positions.
That's
Justin,
not
may
true.
I ask
I
you-
chime in
We
real
tried.
quick.
That's not true. We tried 1%.
Can I-
No, we didn't.
Can I
Yeah,
chime
that
in
was-
real quick?
Yeah.
We're talking about the proposed budget, correct? Not the default budget.
That is
Right.
correct. We
Yes.
can't do anything with,
Right.
with the default.
Yeah.
Justin, while we continue deliberation, would you be willing to please look at what percentage of the proposed budget, if you took, say, give me a dollar amount, gentlemen,
I'm on a percentage.
1%
1%.
444,000.
That's definitely doable.
444,000?
Roughly.
It would show the public that we hear them. I mean, right? We
At that rate, just
so-
take it from UFB then.
No.
That's still no.
I'm
Sorry.
No.
You guys, obviously,
out
you're the
there.
voting selectmen, and
Yeah.
I do not believe it is a good practice to utilize UFB for regular expenses. It gets to the point where we're now, to me, it becomes a bait and switch situation, and
agree.
that's not fair to the
So then
taxpayers.
I'll
That's
go
my
back
own
to the
personal
argument
opinion.
that We've
but-
been right-sizing the budget with all our directors and our chief of police and chief of fire, that we've really right-sized everything. I don't know where else they'd be able to cut at this point to save 450 grand.
We haven't asked them, have we?
We've asked them multiple times.
We asked for 4%, and we were told that wasn't possible. 1%.
4% on the default.
Right. Right. So I don't think it's an issue.
Sarah, just pause, Sarah.
Yeah.
I just want to comment on that. The previous ask was 4% of the default, which is a very different number than
Right.
a percentage on the proposed.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
And just for the sake of information, the default, I know I have it right here, but for those that don't, the default budget is what dollar amount, please? And again, we're still missing CBA's.
Correct.
That is a huge
That's
key that
separate
we
warrant
need to-
articles.
Separate warrant articles, but the default budget,
Is $43,845,459.
and it's the proposed budget, absent of the CBA's.
Is $44,467,849. The difference, the increase, is $622,390.
600 and how much, please?
$22,390.
Proposed budget over the default.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So Justin, to John's point, if we asked all department heads to cut 1%, do you have an idea how much that would be for each department? Roughly, or just? I'm asking because I want to. Ted doesn't
1
think it can be
second, I
done.
can
I
tell
think
you.
it can be. I don't think it's to cut that much off each department. I don't think is a big ask.
Are we including library?
Yes.
Are we, okay.
We're including all department heads.
I'm just going to take out insurance as well as debt service. And are you good with taking out general assistance from that calculation?
You?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Yes.
So, police, that would be a 117,339. For fire, that would be 99,190. Public Works would be the next one, next biggest, with 51,780. I can keep going through, but I figured you guys just want the heavy hitters up front. The smallest would be the town council with $131, or the conservation with $35.
Let's just throw us out the library since we're talking about the library.
The library, it would be $15,677.
And that's. We're just
So
doing.
John,
we're just
can
doing
you
that.
get John up to speed?
So yeah, we're just doing a quick
What were we just doing?
We're
Bottom
just
line
doing
cut?
a
He was-
1%
yeah,
cut
that's what he
on
was
all
suggesting.
departments, all department heads.
So what's that?
So
44,
you just-
so
400 and
400. So it was
50-ish.
117 for police.
So 1%. So you're looking.
So taking out the departments-
62,500 into 440,000.
So taking out the departments we discussed, though, we talked about taking out insurance and general assistance as well as debt
Take
service.
debt service out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Take
just
solid
those.
waste out.
Okay. Taking solid waste out.
Can't cut solid waste. The garbage has got to go somewhere.
That is 340,000.
So, all right, so 62,000 into that is
Just
nickel?
about 5.5 cents.
So 5.5 cents. So 5.5 cents times 500.
$25.
Does anyone know what the median house is in Londonderry?
595 is last
Beg
time.
pardon?
Income or house?
595.
All right, so 600, so $30. I mean, whatever everybody wants to do is fine with me. I mean,
I think we
just-
have to show something.
I think we're just saying we think we have to show something, and people are saying here that we have to.
I'm not disagreeing with
I
you.
mean,
I was trying to be more specific, but I think you brought up the
I
general,
actually like
so I
your
was like,
suggestion.
It's a
well,
bottom line budget.
yeah.
yeah, you know,
I mean, but if you're gonna, so the question you ask yourself is okay, if you're gonna cut $30 off the tax bill, does that cost us any services?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. I don't know the answer to it. I just happened to think of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to be targeted with something where I thought things were not in line.
I get it.
The only other suggestion I had on that is Ryan last time had brought up the calculation between the overtime. I feel like it's a little high on the fire, and we could take off some of that and get it more, but I don't know what exactly that amount is. Those are the only two areas I saw where we could really get something. And we haven't bid on a thing, and Dan Bouchard brought it up, and he was exactly right. We should do something to show them, and those were my only thoughts of things that I could come that rose to the top.
Well, though, I feel like we have done something, because originally at our meeting in November, was it 2nd or 3rd, there were a lot higher budgets, and the over-proposed budget was about 800 to 900,000 over default. Now we're only at about 600.
But I think that one was just an exercise.
that was an exercise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the killers here is insurance. Yeah, that's really our big nut, is the insurance piece. And then we're looking at fires going up $1 million, and police is going up 1.2 million. It's not that I don't understand what everybody's saying. I'm just pointing out the obvious, I guess. And I go back to the numbers we've been running all night long. So
That's why the first one I brought up, I think it would keep it in line with. And yes, some of those other places had higher population, which means we should actually be better in spending them, but in proportional spending, we're not. So that's part of the problem, to respond to what Kate said. But that was the only where I think we could without decreasing services. And I know some members of the budget committee have actually offered their help in how to get that budget rightly in line, so it is spending in proportional to communities of the services it offers.
Can I just pause you?
Yeah.
To the public, I'm having an extreme difficult time with the crosstalk in the public. I really want to. I value your input during the time. I value public comment. I value your input. I truly do. But I personally am having a challenging time hearing the council deliberate. And if I could please respectfully ask, if you have crosstalk, if you could kindly please just temporarily remove yourself from the council chambers. You are more than welcome to stay. I'm not asking anyone to leave. I'm just asking if conversations could be outside of the council chamber so that we can hear each other. And someone who has a hard time paying attention, it is rather challenging to me. So thank you for your understanding. Please continue.
Well, I was
Sorry
finished.
for interrupting.
No. I was. That's just the only thing where I think there's assistance offered, and I think it would be good for them to take that up if they so choose. But I do think it's disproportional for the level of services. So I think in that we could remove that and still maintain the level of service that we're having today. If we want an increased level of service, that's another story. But for the level of services we provide in proportion to other libraries in the state, that's what the number is. So that's what I try to just look at it unemotionally with all the facts from the state.
So what is your proposal specifically?
I mean, if we want to get it in line with the other things that offer, it's 100,000 less. If we want to do something less than that, I'd be happy with that if we do something. It's just, I'm trying to do something for the people that spoke tonight and the other people that have called me and talked to me throughout the entirety of this budget process. I think something would at least be a show from this council that, those people are a voice in this community that matters too. The people on fixed income, the people just starting jobs, all the seniors that we have that make up a giant portion of our tax base. I'm trying to get something for them.
And I'll elaborate on that. I've had more than a handful of people. So I've had more than 5 people call me. They're concerned about the reevaluation next year, and they're concerned about how much their taxes are going to go up this year with this budget.
Well,
So I think that, those two together could be a big issue for people in Londonderry when they get their tax bill next December.
Can I?
Absolutely.
So, we're at $622,000 over default right now.
Yes.
Right. So cut 100. Tell them to go figure it out.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, I'm not saying cut it where from.
Yeah.
Tell them to go figure it out.
Yeah.
I think we need to do
Agreed.
something to show
I agree
show
with
that
what
we
John
hear them.
said.
Are you good with 100?
No,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I'm
You
good with
it all?
I'm good with
622 to 522, and just figure it out.
just to say we did something.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not saying we did something, but if they come back to us and say that I'm cutting ALS services because you cut $100,000, I'm gonna have a little bit of a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think we have responsible department heads that wouldn't do that, right? I think it was right. I'm just saying. I think we have
understand.
responsible.
And I think we need to be responsible partners and help them with that, not just if they so choose. If they so choose that they want to figure it out, they're welcome to it.
Tell them to go find $100,000. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
So on a $600 home, that'll save you $9.60.
it all matters.
It all matters. That's right. It all matters.
Okay.
So 100,000 from the total budget.
100,000 from the total budget, which is currently at $622,000 over default.
Perfect.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
We should do it fairly though.
Okay. Consensus.
And that doesn't target anyone, so that's
Right.
Yeah,
Just
I
do
feel
it
better
fairly
about
across
that.
the board.
I feel bad about even picking anyone, so I'm better with your answer.
I feel like we need to do something.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm still questioning whether the budget's going to get approved at all over default. So I mean,
Yeah.
All right.